Men, everything that you've learned about orgasm is wrong. For most men, ejaculation and orgasm are one and the same. We associate orgasm as an ejaculatory release. But the truth is that men can have sustained multiple full body orgasms over and over again without ejaculating as often as you want, basically. And I'm going to explain this more in this video. You're going to learn how you can do this and some of the misconceptions around male multiple orgasms. Let's get into it. I'm Jonathan White. I'm here to help you master your sexual energy so you can create your ideal life. If you're enjoying the content, hit the subscribe button to stay notified when I drop new videos. Take my free ejaculation control course through the link in the video description below. So if you grab a dictionary, well, if you look online, who has dictionaries sitting around anymore? But if you look up the word orgasm, you're going to find something around a climax of sexual excitement characterized by feelings of intense sexual pleasure, and for men, accompanied by ejaculation. So even language can be a barrier here because we've been programmed to associate the only way as a man that you can experience the highest level of pleasure is by ejaculating. And that's how your sexual experience must end. But the problem and the limitation of this is that now your sexual duration enjoyment is defined by how long you can essentially go until you ejaculate. And ejaculation now becomes a barrier because once you've ejaculated, you're essentially impotent for at least an hour, if not days. The refractory period usually gets longer and longer as you get older. This actually severely limits your sexual pleasure. By knowing that it's possible to experience vastly intensified sensations of pleasure, orgasmic pleasure, for sustained periods of time over and over again without ejaculating, that can become your normal sexual experience. How does that sound? And by doing so, you're no longer limited by, okay, well, I ejaculated, now I must recover. You can be ready to go 24/7. This also has implications for your hormone levels because for men, excessive ejaculation, which I would consider as more than once a week, because for men, excessive ejaculation, meaning you're doing this every day or extremely often, this often goes hand in hand with low testosterone levels, imbalances in your neurotransmitter chemicals, dopamine, serotonin, melatonin, higher levels of prolactin, higher levels of estrogen, meaning you're moody, you gain weight, you have low motivation, etc. So by experiencing non-ejaculatory orgasms, you can last as long as you want because ejaculation no longer becomes a barrier. So this actually can help you overcome premature ejaculation. Basically 10x your enjoyment of sex. So the first thing I want to address right away is some of the misconceptions around male multiple orgasms. Of course, there's going to be many different versions of this. What I'm not talking about is squeeze and hold technique or $1 million point where you're physically blocking sperm from moving through your urethra by either pressing it with your fingers or by doing a strong Kegel and engaging pelvic floor tension. These methods do work, but I find them far inferior because the whole thing is you're waiting to the last minute to force your way out of an ejaculation and into a different type of orgasm. And what I'm going to be talking about is actually about rewiring how your body experiences orgasmic buildup completely. So it's a whole different experience. So this brings us to talk about the nervous system. This is actually really what defines the type of experience you have sexually. What aspect of your nervous system is engaged and turned on? And for most men, for various reasons, I think a combination of porn, the overstimulation of porn, a lot of the shame and embarrassment around sexuality and their upbringing, and the combination of these leading to very poor masturbation habits and sexual habits, that most men are in a fight or flight nervous system response during sexual arousal, characterized by tension in the pelvic floor, by shallow breathing, and a very busy, overactive mind. So what this does is locks you into our survival mode orgasm, which is I need to impregnate my partner before a lion comes and eats me. So let's just get this over with really quickly. What do you experience in a sexual context, whether it's masturbation or during sex, is that as soon as sexual pleasure occurs, you're at the edge of ejaculation. And what's going to happen here is your pelvic floor is probably going to be really tense. You're going to be breathing really shallow. So these are some physical characteristics that help you to understand what's happening here. And so if you struggle with premature ejaculation, it's because you have a stress response to sexual stimulation. And don't worry, most men do. You can overcome this. The other end of the spectrum here, what's going to bring you into non-ejaculatory orgasm, into full body orgasm territory, is transforming that nervous system response from a tension response to a relaxation response. And when I started practicing this, I realized this was my original sexual response. When I was first discovering masturbation, I had a strong relaxation response. But over time, I transitioned into a tension-based response as I tried to start to squeeze ejaculations out, both figuratively and literally. Tensing up the pelvic floor, doing a Kegel essentially, is a method most men start to use during masturbation and then during sex to squeeze more pleasure out, and it just becomes involuntary, and now they're stuck in a tension response that's keeping you on the edge of ejaculation. So when you have a parasympathetic nervous system, you're calm, collected, grounded state, think laying on a beach in the summer with no worries, it's when you're in the parasympathetic nervous system mode. When that is dominant during your sexual activity, you're not going to ejaculate. And when you can maintain that, it actually creates more room in your nervous system and in your body, your energy body, for sexual pleasure to build and build and build. Because what's happening for most men is their genitals is the only space that the sexual energy can build. The arousal, the excitement in the nervous system can build. It can only hold so much. So once it hits the maximum threshold, you have to ejaculate and disperse it. It's a discharge. But when you're in the relaxation parasympathetic based model, your whole body becomes a container to hold arousal. So it builds and builds. Now you have 100 times greater space to hold this arousal, and you start to build into this resonant state of full body pleasure, which creates powerful states of orgasm without ejaculating. So essentially, you must learn to relax both physically and mentally and allow the sensation of arousal and pleasure to fill up your whole body, your belly, your chest, your head, your legs, instead of being stuck in the genitals. Now, I want to give you some practical tools that will get you started with this right away. The first thing is breathing. Your breath can be a container for massive levels of pleasure, or it can be a contributing factor to pushing you over the edge. Depends how you're doing it. So what you don't want to do is tense, shallow breathing from the chest. What you do want to do is deep, full breaths from the lower abdomen. Think of breathing into your pelvic floor. With every breath, with every inhale, think, can I expand my pelvic floor? And that's going to relax this whole area and prevent any buildup towards ejaculation. So that's a really simple thing to use right away. And then the second thing is simply releasing any tension that arises, especially once again in the pelvic floor region. And here's something that's really simple that will help you to do this is imagine that you're trying to urinate. Now, the healthy way to urinate is to simply relax. If you're trying to push it out, it's not a very good pattern to have. But the ideal method of urination is you relax completely. So you actually have to be in the parasympathetic nervous system state to urinate. So if you recall that feeling when you're experiencing sexual pleasure, then this will help you to completely relax. So just a combination of those two things, breathing deeply and fully, especially into your pelvic floor, and relaxing your pelvic floor deeply, similar to how you do when you're going to urinate, it's going to put you into a relaxed state during sexual stimulation. And you don't want to bring any expectation of like, okay, I'm trying to get to an orgasm. You can't get to a non-ejaculatory orgasm by doing the things you do to bring yourself into an ejaculatory orgasm. So a good starting point is to just breathe and relax. Notice your tendency to want to go into something that you're not experiencing right now. That's a disconnect from the moment, and just see how present, how deeply you can relax and melt into the pleasure that you are feeling. And if you can allow that to move through your entire body. So if you practice that repeatedly, it's going to start to dramatically open you up to a new experience of sexuality. And then once you get good at this, you can try it with a partner. You can actually have your partner do this as well. Like, hey, we're gonna try something different this time. We're gonna see like just how deeply we can breathe and how fully we can relax and just open our full bodies up together to the pleasure. So this is a really good starting point because ultimately sexual kung fu is a very comprehensive path. There's a lot of nuances to it. There's a lot of dynamics. But what I've shared with you is a really, really great starting point. It's just the tip of the iceberg, but it's enough that if you really work with it, it's going to bring you to some fantastic results. And things can get even more advanced. Just kind of a preview of what else is further on along in the training is eventually you get a little more sophisticated with things. So with some training, you can actually keep your pelvic floor relaxed. You can prevent it from tightening up, which is going to bring you towards ejaculation, even during very vigorous, intense sex. Having a relaxation response to sexual stimulation doesn't mean that you're just like limp like a noodle and just all soft and slow. You can be having rough, vigorous sex, but 100% in that relaxation response. And where eventually things go in the sexual kung fu practice is you start to learn to directly move with your mind, the sexual energy, the arousal, to circulate it through your body so you can bring orgasms into your brain, into your heart, into your legs. I've had orgasms in my thighs. You can exchange the energy with your partner and ride waves of bliss and ecstasy together. So that's where it goes. And if you're interested in this, you want to go all the way, you may want to pay attention to what I'm about to tell you next. I shared some really amazing starting points. Like if you integrate these things, you see great results. But ultimately, there's a lot of challenges to this process. It took me years of training to really get this stuff. And fortunately, I learned ways to shorten the process so that men can see results in months even. And the most important thing to realize is that you've created a certain habitual response to sexual stimulation. And again, for most men, that's a stress response. So it takes consistent training to change that around. And if you really want to get the highest benefits, you really have to train like an athlete, because this work requires pelvic floor rebalancing, overcoming dysfunctional pelvic floor patterns that are creating enormous amounts of tension and getting you stuck in premature ejaculation. It requires rewiring your nervous system to your sexual response. It requires being able to connect your mind deeply into your body so you can circulate sexual energy. There's a lot of things you need to train in to really master this stuff and experience the highest level. So with that understanding, I encourage you to set a solid training schedule for yourself. And I've got a lot of free resources here on my YouTube channel, but the whole thing is you want to be training in all these things consistently. Your breathing, the relaxation, doing exercises that open up the tissues, open up your nervous system of your body, balancing your mind, your emotions, all these things so you can be very present and be a sexual kung fu master. And this is exactly how I structured my multi-orgasmic man course, where you essentially train like a sexual athlete to develop absolute sexual mastery. And in this program, you're going to be completely guided from start to finish through routines. You're going to be cross-training in different practices that will train your mind, your body, your nervous system, enhance your sexual vitality, and help you develop complete ejaculation control and the ability to have powerful, full-body, non-ejaculatory orgasms. So if you're interested in that training, I'll put a link in the description of this video. It's open for registration right now. If you're watching in the future and registration is not open, you can sign up for the waiting list so that you're notified when it does reopen. With that, my friends, I hope you enjoyed the video. I'm really here to empower you guys, because as men, it's our birthright to have immense sexual pleasure without it taking something from us, without being depleted from it. And so I'm here to help every single man in the world achieve this. If you desire, wishing you the best on your journey. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you give it a like, share it with a friend who needs to know about this. Have a great day, my friends.